The night was thick with fog, the kind that swallows headlights and makes every mile of road feel like a dream you might not wake up from. The forest on both sides of Route 29 was a shifting wall of silver and shadow, the trees bending in the wind as if whispering secrets to each other. Ava Mitchell gripped the steering wheel tighter. Her old Jeep Cherokee coughed, then hissed, a slow, defeated sound that made her heart sink. The engine light had been flickering for weeks, but she'd ignored it, telling herself she could make it just one more night. She was heading north, out of Asheville, escaping a past she hadn't yet named aloud. The Jeep jerked, sputtered, and then silence. The headlights dimmed, the radio cut off mid-song, and the world was swallowed in darkness. "Damn it," she whispered, slamming her palm against the steering wheel. Outside, the air shimmered under a full October moon. Mist rolled across the asphalt, soft and alive, curling around the hood of her car. The temperature dropped, sharp and sudden. She could see her breath when she exhaled. She stepped out of the Jeep, her boots crunching against gravel. The forest was eerily still, no cicadas, no wind, just a faint rustle of leaves somewhere deep within. She tried her phone, but of course, there was no signal. There never was, not this far from town. Ava wrapped her denim jacket tighter around her and looked up at the moon, pale and impossibly large, hanging low over the ridge, like an unblinking eye. And then she heard it, a howl, low and distant at first, almost melodic, then closer, raw, guttural, human in its anguish. Her pulse quickened. Probably just a coyote, she muttered under her breath, but she didn't believe it. She grabbed the flashlight from her glove compartment and pointed it toward the trees. The beam cut through the mist in narrow streaks of white. For a second, she thought she saw something move, tall, fast, almost graceful, but when she blinked, there was nothing. The wind shifted. She caught a scent on it, not animal, not rot, but something warm, almost electric, like ozone after lightning. And then came the footsteps. Slow, heavy, deliberate. Her breath caught. "Who's there?" No answer. Only the sound of crunching leaves growing closer, then stopping, just beyond the edge of the fog. When he stepped into the moonlight, she forgot how to breathe. He was barefoot, shirtless despite the cold, his skin damp with mist. His hair was dark, thick, falling in unruly waves over his forehead, and his eyes, God, his eyes, glowed faintly gold, like the reflection of a flame seen through whiskey. There was a rawness about him, a presence that made the air itself hum. "Your car," he said, his voice low, deep, rough around the edges. "It won't start again tonight." Ava took a step back. "Who are you?" He tilted his head slightly, as though the question puzzled him. "Someone who's been waiting for you." The word slid under her skin like static. "That's not funny. I don't even know you." "You will," he said simply. His gaze softened, though it never lost its intensity. "You shouldn't be out here alone. The woods aren't safe under a full moon." She let out a shaky laugh. "Right. And you're what, a forest ranger?" His lips curved, but not quite into a smile. Something like that. The fog thickened between them, swirling around his legs, his hands. His veins gleamed faintly under the skin, pulsing in rhythm with her heartbeat. Ava's flashlight flickered, then died. "I can help you," he said, "if you'll trust me." She hesitated. Every instinct told her to get back in the car, lock the doors, and wait until morning. But there was something in his voice, not threatening, not exactly, something ancient, sorrowful. "What's your name?" she asked. He looked up at the moon before answering. "Rowan." "Rowan," she repeated, tasting the name. "Okay, Rowan. You said you could help me. How?" He moved closer. She should have been afraid, but she wasn't, not exactly. It was more like standing too close to a storm. Thrilling, dangerous, alive. "By keeping you safe," he said. His voice dropped, almost a growl. "There are things in these woods tonight that hunt what they desire, and they've already scented you." Her throat tightened. "Scented me." He stepped within a few feet of her now, his breath visible in the cold air. The gold in his eyes burned brighter. "You should come with me." "To where?" "My land," he said. "It's not far." Ava shook her head. "I'm not going anywhere with you." For a moment, Something primal flashed across his face. Pain, maybe, or anger. But he didn't move closer. Instead, he looked toward the forest again, nostrils flaring, his muscles tensed, like he was listening to something she couldn't hear. "They're coming," he murmured. "Too soon." "Who's coming?" Before he could answer, a second howl split the night. This one was closer and deeper. It rattled her bones, vibrated the air itself. Rowan's expression changed, fierce now, his jaw tightening, his body shifting subtly, as though the sound pulled at something buried within him. "Get inside the car," he ordered. She didn't move. "Now, Ava," he roared. The sound of her name on his lips sent a chill down her spine. She stumbled back toward the Jeep, fumbling with the door. But before she could climb in, the forest erupted with movement, fast, violent, inhuman. Shapes darted between the trees. Eyes flashed in the dark, yellow, red, then gone again. Rowan turned toward them, his shoulders heaving, his breath coming fast. His hands trembled, then clenched into fists. "Don't look," he said, his voice breaking. "Whatever you do, don't look." But she did, and what she saw shattered everything she thought she knew about the world. His back arched, his body convulsed, bones cracking, skin rippling. His breath came out in a low, animal growl as his hands clawed at the dirt. The change was violent, beautiful, and impossible. Within seconds, the man was gone. In his place stood something colossal, for glistening under the moonlight, eyes burning with the same molten gold that had stared into hers moments ago. The Lycan king. The mist swirled around him like a crown as he lifted his head and released a roar that shook the mountainside. The other creatures, whatever they were, froze, their eyes flickering out like dying embers. Then silence. The fog settled again. Ava stood frozen by her car, trembling, her breath shallow, her heart racing. She didn't know whether to run or fall to her knees. The beast, Rowan, turned his head slowly toward her. For a heartbeat, their eyes met again. There was no threat there, only sorrow, recognition. And then, from deep within the woods, another howl answered, darker, older, colder. The sound of arrival. Rowan took a single step forward, massive and silent, his golden gaze still locked on hers. "Get back in the car," she heard him whisper, not with his mouth, but somewhere deeper inside her mind. Then he disappeared into the trees. The moon burned brighter. The mist began to move again, and Ava Mitchell realized she wasn't alone on that mountain anymore. By morning, the mist was gone, burned away by a pale, cold sun that barely broke through the Appalachian haze. Ava sat behind the wheel of her dead Jeep, wrapped in her jacket, shivering, not from the chill, but from the fragments of memory that refused to settle into sense. The road was quiet again, empty except for the whisper of wind through pine. There was no sign of Rowan, no tracks, no shredded earth, no monstrous prints pressed into the mud. It might have been a dream, if not for the faint, musky scent that lingered on her jacket, a scent that was both wild and human. When she finally twisted the ignition again, the Jeep roared to life. She exhaled a shaky laugh. "Now you decide to work." The drive north continued in silence. She didn't dare look in the rearview mirror for too long, afraid she'd see eyes glowing faintly gold in the distance. 3 hours later, Ava rolled into the small mountain town of Burnsville, North Carolina. The place looked trapped in time. Old brick storefronts, a diner with a flickering neon open sign, and a courthouse clock that ticked slower than the world around it. She checked into a roadside inn, the kind with floral wallpaper and a front desk that smelled faintly of lemon disinfectant. The manager, a middle-aged woman with soft eyes and silver hair, looked up from her crossword as Ava approached. "Rough night, honey?" she asked. Ava hesitated. "You could say that. Full moon will do that. Brings out strange things in these parts." Ava froze. "What kind of things?" The woman shrugged lightly. "Coyotes, usually. Sometimes mountain cats. The woods can play tricks on you at night." Ava forced a smile. "Right. Tricks." She signed the guest book and took the key. Room 7. The shower water was hot, scalding, but it didn't wash away the memory of his voice. Low, guttural. Too human to be animal. Too animal to be human. She tried to reason with herself, to call it shock or exhaustion. but her mind replayed the transformation again and again, like lightning behind her eyelids. When she stepped out, she caught herself in the mirror. There was a mark at the base of her neck, faint, silvery. Not a bruise, not exactly. She touched it, and a strange warmth spread through her fingers. A knock on the door made her flinch. Ava, her name. Again, she froze. She hadn't told anyone her name here. When she opened the door, no one was there. Only a folded piece of paper pinned under the mat. Her pulse quickened as she unfolded it. A single line, written in hurried handwriting. The moon will rise again tomorrow. Leave before it does. There was no signature. She found herself at the diner that afternoon, sitting at the counter with a cup of bitter coffee and a map spread open in front of her. She was tracing the road out of Burnsville when the bell over the door jingled. The man who entered carried the same air the forest had that night, charged, heavy, alive. Rowan. But now he was dressed like any man in town, dark flannel shirt, jeans, boots dusted with red clay. Only his eyes betrayed him, that strange molten hue flickering like a candle in a storm. Ava's breath caught. You're alive. He slid onto the stool beside her, his voice low enough that only she could hear. So are you. I'm glad. She stared at him. What happened last night? What are you? He looked away, jaw tightening. You wouldn't believe me if I told you. I saw you change. Silence stretched between them. The hum of the diner, the clatter of dishes, the faint sound of country music on the radio. All of it faded around that truth. Finally, he said, Then you already know. She swallowed hard. You said you'd been waiting for me. His eyes softened. I was, but not the way you think. Then how? He didn't answer. Instead, he reached into his jacket and set something on the counter. A small silver locket, tarnished but intricate. Inside was a faded photograph of a woman who looked almost exactly like Ava. Her heart stopped. What is this? My mother, he said quietly. And you? That's impossible. She disappeared 27 years ago. Rowan said. The same night you were born. Ava's stomach twisted. No, my mother died in a car accident when I was a baby. He looked at her, something pained and knowing in his expression. That's what you were told. Before she could speak, a voice from the far corner of the diner cut through the air. Well, if it isn't the stray king himself. A tall man leaned against the wall, his smile sharp as broken glass. His hair was almost white blonde, his eyes an unnatural shade of steel. When he looked at Ava, she felt a chill snake down her spine. Rowan, the man drawled. You didn't tell me you'd brought company. Rowan stood slowly, every muscle in his body tensing. Stay out of this, Carter. Carter's grin widened. You know I can't do that. Not when she smells like her. Ava's throat tightened. What are you talking about? Carter's gaze slid back to her. Hungry, curious. You don't know, do you? Oh, this is going to be fun. Rowan moved before she could blink, fast, silent, his hand gripping Carter's collar as he slammed him against the wall. The room gasped. Dishes rattled. But when Ava blinked again, Carter was gone, vanished as if swallowed by air itself. Rowan turned back to her, his eyes burning gold again. You have to leave. Tonight. Not until you tell me the truth. He looked at her like a man standing at the edge of a cliff, caught between saving her and destroying himself. The truth, he said slowly, is that your life isn't yours anymore. The blood that runs through you, my blood, is calling things you don't understand. Ava felt the world tilt beneath her. Your blood. He took a step closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. You're part of this world whether you believe it or not, and they'll come for you when the moon rises again. Outside, clouds drifted across the afternoon sun, dimming the diner in gray. Rowan's expression shifted, fear, raw and human. They've already started. Ava turned toward the window. The fog was rolling in again, thick and fast, swallowing Main Street like a living thing. That night, she couldn't sleep. Every sound outside the motel, creaking wood, a dog barking down the street, made her jolt. Her pulse beat hard and fast, matching the rhythm of her thoughts. Was she really tied to him? To them? Near midnight, She stepped outside. The air was cold, wet, filled with the scent of rain and pine. Somewhere beyond the town's edge, she heard howls, more than one this time. A flicker of gold caught her eye near the tree-line. Rowan watching. He didn't move. Neither did she. Between them stretched the quiet ache of something ancient and inevitable. Then, faintly, she heard his voice again, inside her mind, soft, fractured. They'll come for you before dawn. The wind shifted, and from the depths of the forest came the sound of footsteps, many of them, closing in. The footsteps came like echoes at first, rhythmic, steady, too coordinated to be animals. Ava's breath caught as the wind stirred the fog, and faint silhouettes emerged from the tree-line. At least half a dozen of them, moving low, deliberate, watching. She stepped back instinctively, her boots crunching against the gravel outside the motel room. "Rowan," she whispered. He was suddenly beside her, materializing from the mist like he'd been carved out of it. Eyes burning, shoulders tense, that same quiet feral stillness vibrating under his skin. "They found you," he said. "Who?" "The remnants. What's left of my father's pack." He moved in front of her, his stance protective but trembling slightly, like he was fighting something inside himself. "You need to go inside," he said. "I'm not leaving you." His eyes flashed gold, but this time they weren't angry, they were pleading. "Ava, you don't understand what they want." "Then make me understand." Rowan hesitated. For a moment, the world seemed to narrow to just them, the fog, the moon, the trembling between every heartbeat. He reached up, his fingers brushing the silver mark on her neck. "When I pulled you from that wreck 27 years ago," he said, voice low and breaking, "I marked you. It was the only way to keep them from killing you." Ava froze. "You what?" "I gave you part of my blood," he said. "Half my strength, half my curse." The words sliced through the night. She stumbled back, shaking her head. "No, that's not possible." His eyes glimmered, wet with something like guilt. "You were just a baby. I didn't mean for it to take root. But now," he swallowed, "now it's waking." "What's waking?" "Your blood. Your link to the pack. To me." The fog thickened again, and the figures in the trees stepped closer. The nearest one was tall, lean, his face half-shadowed by the moon. His teeth gleamed when he smiled. "Rowan," the man said, voice rough and mocking, "you shouldn't have come back." "I told you to stay dead, Mason," Rowan replied, his voice dropping into something darker. Mason's grin widened. "And miss this? The return of the lost king? The girl you swore to protect?" Ava's stomach twisted. "What do you mean, king?" But Mason answered first. "Didn't he tell you? Our Rowan isn't just one of us. He's the one. The Lycan king, son of Orion Holt, the last of the Blood Moon line." Rowan's jaw clenched. "Enough. Except," Mason continued, eyes glinting, "you gave away the only thing that made you worthy of the throne. Your mark. Your blood. Her." He pointed straight at Ava. The world tilted. Ava felt heat rising under her skin, spreading from her neck to her chest, her hands. The air around her vibrated faintly, like electricity. "What's happening to me?" she whispered. Rowan grabbed her wrist. "You need to breathe. Don't fight it." But the heat only grew stronger. Her vision flickered, gold and silver, light and dark, until the motel and the forest blended into one pulsing blur. She felt her pulse race, her muscles tightening, a low sound rising from deep in her chest that wasn't human. She stumbled, gasping. "Make it stop. You have to let it through," Rowan said, his voice breaking. "It's the only way you'll survive them." And then the world exploded. Her scream tore through the night, but it wasn't pain. It was power. The fog around her swirled violently, trees bending under invisible wind. Her eyes flashed bright silver, brighter than the moon itself. Mason's smirk faltered. "No, that's not possible. She's half," Rowan finished, his voice heavy. "And that makes her stronger than either of us." Ava fell to her knees, her breath coming in ragged bursts. When she looked up again, her reflection shimmered faintly in the window glass, the outline of her face, but with something ancient behind her eyes. The remnants hesitated. Rowan's voice carried across the clearing, sharp and cold. "Leave now, or I'll tear what's left of you apart." Mason laughed once, a harsh, brittle sound. "You can't protect her forever. When the next moon rises, she'll have to choose." "Choose what?" Ava demanded. Mason's eyes gleamed as he backed into the fog. "Which side of her blood she wants to keep." And then they were gone. The silence that followed was heavy and suffocating. Rowan turned to her slowly. His hands were shaking. "You weren't supposed to awaken yet." "What did he mean?" Ava asked. "Choose which side." He exhaled, his breath visible in the cold. "Your mother was human. She fled the bloodlines to save you. But when I marked you, I bound you to both worlds. The full moon will tear you in half unless—" He stopped. "Unless what?" "Unless you accept it." Her chest rose and fell, her mind spinning. "You mean become like you?" Rowan's expression was a storm of pain and longing. "It's the only way to survive what's coming." The wind picked up, scattering leaves down the empty road. Somewhere far off, thunder rumbled, echoing through the valley. Ava looked up at the moon, pale and distant, a watchful eye that refused to blink. "You said you saved me," she whispered. "But maybe you cursed me instead." Rowan flinched as if she'd struck him. "I would never hurt you." "Then tell me the rest. Tell me everything." He hesitated, eyes darkening. "There's something you should see." They drove for nearly an hour through the twisting backroads of the Blue Ridge, until the pavement turned to dirt and the trees grew so thick they seemed to swallow the sky. Rowan stopped at the edge of a clearing, where the ruins of an old stone house sat half buried in vines. "This was your mother's," he said quietly, "before she ran." Ava stepped out of the jeep, the air colder here, sharper. The house looked like it had been left to rot for decades. Shattered windows, roof half collapsed, but the energy around it pulsed faintly alive. Inside, dust motes danced in slivers of moonlight. The walls were carved with symbols she didn't recognize, half Celtic, half something older. "She was one of us," Rowan said softly. "A born seer. Your father was human. She broke the bloodline when she chose him." "And you?" Ava asked. "I was her guardian. The pact chose me to watch over her. But I failed. The night she died, I found only you." He stopped, his hand trembling slightly as he traced one of the carved runes. "I didn't know what else to do," he said. "So I marked you. It was the only way to hide you from my kind." Ava's throat tightened. "You said my mother died in a wreck." Rowan looked at her, eyes heavy with sorrow. "She didn't. She was hunted." The words landed like a blade. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The forest outside was silent again, holding its breath. Finally, Ava said, "Then who killed her?" Rowan's expression hardened. "The same one who's coming for you now." Outside, the wind howled through the valley, like something alive. Rowan's gaze lifted toward the horizon. The first traces of dawn brushed the mountains, but it didn't bring comfort. "She was the last seer of the blood moon line," he said quietly. "But now her power lives in you." Ava's fingers brushed the silver mark on her neck again. It burned faintly, as if something inside her was listening. "Rowan," she whispered, "what happens if I don't choose?" His eyes met hers, gold flickering in the rising light. "Then the moon will choose for you." And far beyond the forest, as the sky turned from night to bruised gray, a second moon, red and faint, began to form on the horizon. The next night came faster than it should have, as if the moon itself were in a hurry to rise. The air in Burnsville felt heavier, charged, like the town was holding its breath beneath a sky too wide, too pale. Clouds gathered over the ridges, swallowing the stars. Ava couldn't sleep. She sat on the edge of the motel bed, the silver mark at her neck pulsing like a heartbeat that didn't belong to her. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw flashes, her mother's face, the forest burning, a woman running through the mist with a child in her arms. She woke gasping, the memory dissolving as quickly as it came. Outside, the wind carried faint howls. Not distant this time. Close. She opened the door. Rowan stood there. He looked different under the storm light, drawn hollow, eyes rimmed with gold that flickered with something close to despair. "It's starting," he said. Ava felt the pull before she even understood his words, a low hum in her chest, magnetic, alive. What's happening to me? You're changing, Rowan said softly. The mark's waking your blood, but you have to fight it until we reach the ridge. Why the ridge? It's where she died. It's the only place your mother's blood still holds power. They drove in silence. The forest pressed close around them, branches scraping the jeep like skeletal hands. The headlights caught flashes of movement, shapes darting between trees. Too fast to name. When they reached the clearing at the ridge, the fog was already rising again. The moon hung low and red over the horizon, twin to the pale silver one that still hovered higher. 2 moons. Ava stared, the pull inside her intensifying until she could barely stand. Why are there 2? Because 2 bloodlines are fighting in you, Rowan said. The human and the Lycan. The blood moon amplifies both. And if I don't choose? He looked at her, eyes burning. You'll tear yourself apart. The ground trembled. From the trees came low growls, dozens of them, circling. The remnants. Rowan moved in front of her, his body shifting slightly, eyes glowing brighter. Stay behind me. Mason's voice floated through the mist. You can't hide her forever, brother. Brother. Ava's chest constricted. He's your... Rowan didn't answer. His jaw locked, teeth clenched. Half-brother. My father's firstborn. The one who was supposed to inherit the throne before he slaughtered the bloodlands. Mason emerged from the fog, flanked by others, tall, predatory, their eyes lit with feral hunger. He smiled at Ava. You feel it too, don't you? The call of the red moon. The hunger. Ava shook her head, backing away. No. Mason tilted his head. It's in your blood. Your heart's already shifting. You can smell it, the forest, the wind him. Stop it, Rowan growled. But Mason's voice only deepened, hypnotic. You can't keep pretending you're human. That part of you was burned away the night she died. You belong to us, Ava. Rowan lunged. Mason was faster. The 2 collided in a blur of claws and fury, crashing through the underbrush. Ava screamed his name, but the forest drowned her out. The pack closed in. She could feel their heat, their pulse, their hunger, and something inside her answered it. Her mark burned hotter, brighter, until the silver light pulsed out from her skin in waves. One of the Lycans leapt toward her. She raised her hands instinctively, and the world erupted. A shock wave of blinding light burst from her palms, throwing the creature backward into the trees. For a moment, silence, then chaos. The pack snarled and scattered. When Rowan reappeared, his face was bloodied, eyes wild. You're stronger than I thought. She stared at her hands, trembling. I didn't mean to. You didn't have to, he said. The blood knows. Behind them, Mason rose again. His cheek was split, his shirt torn, but he was smiling. So the prophecy's true after all. Rowan froze. Don't. Mason's eyes gleamed. She's the bridge between worlds. The one born of both bloods. The one who ends the blood moon line. Ava's pulse pounded. What prophecy? Rowan's voice was sharp. It doesn't matter. It matters to her, Mason hissed. Tell her what she really is. Stop, Rowan said, stepping forward, but Mason was faster. She's not your salvation, brother. She's your doom. Lightning tore the sky open above them. Ava stumbled backward, the ground beneath her shaking. Rowan. He turned toward her, but something in his expression was different now. Regret, maybe, or fear. The prophecy says, Mason continued, that when the Lycan king marks a human child under the blood moon, that child becomes the end of the pack. The one who carries both life and death in her veins. The one who kills the king. The words shattered the air like glass. Ava looked at Rowan, her heart cracking open. Tell me that's not true. Rowan didn't speak. He couldn't. Mason laughed, soft and cruel. He knew. He marked you anyway. Rowan. Her voice broke. Say something. He took a step toward her, his breath ragged. I thought I could protect you. I thought I could change it. But you didn't tell me. I couldn't. His voice trembled. You were just a child. You were innocent. Mason's tone dripped like poison. And now she'll kill you to save herself. Ava's hand shook as the mark flared again, burning white-hot. No. The sky deepened to blood. The red moon swelled until it filled the valley, casting everything in its light. Rowan dropped to his knees, fighting the change ripping through him. "Run," he gasped. But Ava couldn't move. The world was spinning. The heat under her skin turned to fire. She felt her heartbeat sync with the rhythm of his, fast, desperate, breaking. "Rowan," she whispered, tears streaking down her face. "Don't leave me." His voice, low and guttural, barely human now. "You have to choose." She shook her head. "I can't. If you don't, I'll die. I know." Her voice cracked. "But if I choose you, I lose myself." Their eyes locked. Gold and silver. Fire and frost. Lightning split the ridge again, illuminating them in the storm. "Then choose," Rowan said. "Choose the truth of who you are." The air exploded. Ava screamed as the light burst from her chest, engulfing everything, Rowan, the pack, the trees. When it faded, the forest was silent. Mason was gone. The others, too. Only Rowan remained, collapsed against the wet earth, his breath shallow. Ava fell beside him, her hands shaking. "Rowan, no." He reached up, his fingers brushing her cheek. His touch was warm despite the cold. "You did it," he whispered. "You broke the pack." Her tears fell onto his chest. "I didn't mean to hurt you." He smiled faintly, the edge of his teeth glinting in the dark. "You were never meant to save me." His eyes began to dim. "Don't," she said. "Don't go." He managed one last whisper, his breath ghosting against her lips. "When the moon turns silver again, you'll know the truth." Then his body went still. The red moon faded behind clouds. Only the cold, pale one remained, watching. Ava pressed her forehead against his, trembling. And somewhere deep inside her, something ancient stirred, something that wasn't human and wasn't beast. The power he left behind, the curse, the crown. The Lycan king was dead, and Ava Mitchell was no longer the girl who broke down on a lonely road under a full moon. She was something else now, something that would change everything when the next moon rose. Dawn came quietly, like an apology. The ridge was soaked in silver light, the mist lifting in thin ribbons that shimmered against the mountains. Ava sat beside Rowan's still body, her hands resting on the earth that had drunk his blood. The storm had passed, but the world felt hollow, the air too still, the silence too deep. The mark at her neck no longer burned. It pulsed faintly now, softer, as if mourning. She touched it with trembling fingers. The skin there was cool, no longer alive with fever. He was gone, and yet the air around her hummed with him, with the echo of his voice, the shape of his breath, the memory of gold eyes that had looked at her like she was both salvation and destruction. Ava closed her eyes. For the first time since the night on Route 29, she didn't feel afraid, just empty. By the time she returned to Burnsville, the sun had climbed high over the valley. The streets were quiet, washed clean by the storm. The mountains beyond town gleamed in the light, sharp, endless, familiar. At the diner, the same waitress was wiping down the counter, humming softly. She looked up as Ava walked in and frowned. "Sweetheart, you look like you've seen a ghost." Ava forced a small smile. "Maybe I have." The woman studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly, as if she knew better than to ask. "Coffee?" Ava nodded. "Please." When the mug touched her hand, she caught her reflection in the chrome napkin holder, the same face, but not. Her eyes were no longer brown. They shimmered faintly silver, like moonlight over water. She looked away quickly. The waitress poured a refill and said quietly, "They say the fog last night reached all the way to Spruce Pine. Folks heard howls. Strange lights in the woods." Ava said nothing. "You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" She lifted the mug to her lips. "Not anymore." That evening, she drove to the ridge one last time. The forest was quiet again, but not dead. There was something new in the air, something waiting. At the place where Rowan had fallen, the grass had grown back already, thicker, greener, as if the earth itself had healed overnight. Ava knelt there and placed her hand against the soil. "I don't know what I'm supposed to do now," she whispered. You said I'd know the truth when the moon turned silver again. I'm here, Rowan. Tell me what you meant." The wind stirred, brushing through her hair like a hand. Then, faintly, so faintly she almost didn't hear it, his voice. "You were never my end, Ava. You were my beginning." Her breath caught. The air shimmered in front of her. Light silver and gold intertwined began to rise from the earth, swirling into shape. For an instant, she saw him again, Rowan, whole and alive, his smile soft and sad. But he wasn't flesh anymore. He was light, spirit, memory. "You broke the curse," he said. "But the power doesn't vanish. It moves. It chooses." "Chooses who?" she whispered. His eyes met hers. "You." The light touched her chest, sinking into her like breath. The warmth spread through her veins, and she gasped as the mark at her neck flared once more. Not in pain this time, but in recognition. She saw everything then. Her mother's flight through the mountains, Rowan's sacrifice, the bloodlines burning, the centuries of violence born under the red moon. And then she saw something else, a world reborn under a gentler light. No more kings, no more hunters, only balance. When the vision faded, Rowan's shape began to dissolve, scattered like mist and wind. "Will I ever see you again?" Ava asked. His voice came softly, from everywhere and nowhere. "Every full moon, every breath of the forest. I am what you've become." Then he was gone. Months passed. The legend of the blood moon faded from the town's memory, replaced by stories of storms and strange lights no one could explain. But deep in the mountains, something ancient stirred again, not in fury, but in peace. Ava bought a cabin on the edge of the Pisgah forest. She worked days at the diner, painted at night. Sometimes she'd walk the ridge barefoot, her skin glowing faintly when the moon rose. The woods didn't scare her anymore. They listened to her now. Sometimes she thought she heard footsteps behind her, a whisper in the leaves, a soft voice calling her name. When she closed her eyes, she could almost feel him beside her, the warmth of his hand at her back, the steady rhythm of a heart that no longer beat in a body, but in her own, because part of him lived there, always would. It was late October again when she saw the first sign, a shimmer in the night sky, a faint red glow just above the horizon, the blood moon returning. She stood at the edge of the ridge, wind sweeping her hair into her face, eyes fixed on the rising twin moons, one red, one silver. This time, she didn't run. The mark on her neck glowed brighter, but it didn't burn. It hummed, soft and steady, like a second heartbeat. The forest seemed to lean toward her, waiting. Ava lifted her hand, and the air around her rippled. The mist rose, curling around her fingers like silk. She smiled a small, knowing smile. "I understand now," she whispered to the wind. "You weren't a curse. You were a gift." And as the moons crossed paths in the sky, the ridge lit up gold, silver, red, bathing the mountains in light. Somewhere deep in the forest, a howl rose. Not of pain, not of hunger, but of something new, something free. Ava tilted her head back and answered it, her voice soft, human, and something more. When the light faded, the valley was silent again. But from that night on, the people of Burnsville told a different story, of a woman who walked the woods under the full moon, her eyes like molten silver, her presence calm and wild all at once. Some said she was a ghost. Others said she was a guardian. But those who listened closely, those who still believed in the old stories, called her by another name, the Moonkeeper. And on the wind, carried softly through the trees, came a whisper that felt like both promise and goodbye. The Lycan king is never gone. He lives in the light she carries.